First contact gone wrong. The stellar research vessel Curiosity drifted silently through the Orion Arm, its sophisticated sensors probing the depths of space. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes reflecting the distant stars as she reviewed the latest anomalous readings. Something was different about this sector, energy signatures that didn't match any known natural phenomena. Dr. Chen, called out Lieutenant James Rodriguez from his station, were picking up artificial signals. Strong ones. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, bringing up detailed scans. Whatever it is, it's big and it's definitely not human in origin. Sarah felt her heart rate quicken. After decades of searching, humanity had finally found proof of intelligent alien life. As the head xenologist of Earth's most advanced research vessel, she had dreamed of this moment her entire career. Send the first contact package on all frequencies, she ordered, following the protocols developed over a century of speculation and preparation. The message was elegant in its simplicity, mathematical constants, basic scientific principles, and a greeting in multiple formats. They had rehearsed this countless times, but now it was real. The crew held their breath, waiting. The response came faster than anyone expected. A massive vessel seemingly materialized from nowhere, dwarfing the Curiosity. Its hull was covered in what appeared to be crystalline structures, pulsing with internal energy. Before anyone could react, a beam of coherent energy lanced out, slicing through their secondary communications array. Shields. Commander Helena Walsh's voice cut through the chaos as she strode onto the bridge. Get us out of here, maximum thrust. But retreat wasn't an option. 3 more alien vessels appeared, boxing them in with military precision. A harsh, grating voice filled their communications system, speaking perfect English, primitive vermin. Did you really think we wouldn't notice your kind polluting our space with your crude vessels? The alien ships launched what appeared to be boarding pods. Commander Walsh's expression hardened as she activated the ship's internal defense systems. Dr. Chen, delete the research databases. Lieutenant Rodriguez, initiate the blackout protocol. Sarah's fingers flew across her console, permanently erasing years of scientific data. She knew what was coming next. They had trained for this possibility, though few had believed it would ever be necessary. The blackout protocol was humanity's insurance policy against a hostile first contact scenario. The alien boarders breached the hull with remarkable efficiency. They were tall, crystalline beings that moved with unsettling grace, wielding weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. The Curiosity's security teams engaged them with conventional weapons, but it was like throwing pebbles at a tank. Commander Walsh's voice came through the internal comm system, calm despite the chaos. Remember your training. Protect the core systems at all costs. She didn't need to elaborate, everyone knew what was at stake. The aliens pushed through their defenses with contemptuous ease, their crystalline forms seemingly impervious to bullets. Their leader, a towering figure with pulsing purple energy at its core, addressed them directly. Your species is an offense to the natural order. Primitive, violent, barely able to achieve spaceflight. The High Council has decreed that your kind must be contained. Sarah watched as her colleagues were systematically captured or killed. The aliens weren't even trying to hide their disdain, treating the human crew like insects to be crushed. They didn't bother checking for hidden technologies or sealed databases. Why would such primitive beings have anything worth hiding? That was their first mistake. As the last of the crew was rounded up, Commander Walsh caught Sarah's eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. Sarah pressed her hand against her wedding ring, a simple gold band that contained technology far beyond what their attackers believed humans capable of producing. The blackout protocol wasn't just about erasing data, it was about sending it. Every sensor reading, every scan of the alien vessels, every second of combat footage was being transmitted back to Earth through quantum-entangled particles embedded in seemingly decorative jewelry and personal items. Technology that the aliens, in their arrogance, hadn't even thought to look for. The crystalline beings herded the surviving crew into the cargo bay. Their leader spoke again, this time addressing Commander Walsh directly. Your species will be studied, then properly contained on your death world. Consider yourselves fortunate, the Council was considering immediate extermination. Walsh's response was quiet, almost gentle, you should have gone with extermination. She smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Because now we know you exist. The alien leader dismissed her words with a gesture, ordering his troops to begin transferring prisoners to their vessel. They never noticed the quantum transmission had already reached Earth, carrying with it everything humanity would need to prepare for what was coming. As Sarah was marched toward the alien ship, she caught one last glimpse of Earth's distant sun. The aliens thought they were dealing with primitives, barely able to achieve spaceflight. They thought humanity's research vessels were the best technology Earth could produce. They were wrong. The Curiosity wasn't humanity's best, it was what humanity wanted potential hostiles to see. A careful crafted facade hiding centuries of secret technological development. And now, thanks to the Blackout Protocol, Earth would know exactly what they were facing. The real fight hadn't even begun. The silent preparation. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Admiral Jane Hawthorne stared at the quantum transmission data from the Curiosity. Her weathered face, marked by decades of service, reflected the harsh light of holographic displays showing the crystalline aliens' capabilities. They call themselves the Crystalline Concordat, her chief analyst, Dr. Marcus Wong, reported. Based on the Curiosity's scans, their technology relies heavily on crystalline matrices for computing and weapons systems. Advanced, but predictable. He paused, allowing himself a small smile. And vulnerable. The Admiral nodded, her mind already calculating possibilities. Humanity had spent the last century preparing for this exact scenario. While the public saw space agencies struggling with primitive chemical rockets, the truth lay hidden in places like this underground complex. Status of Project Prometheus, she asked, though she already knew the answer. They'd been ready for years, waiting for the moment when humanity would need to show its real capabilities. Dr. Wong brought up a new hologram showing massive structures hidden throughout the solar system. The Jupiter shipyards are at full capacity. The nanoforges in Mercury's core are operating at peak efficiency. As for the Titan defense grid, he gestured, and the display shifted to show Saturn's largest moon. The quantum field generators are online and undetected. Humanity's greatest deception hadn't been hiding their advanced technology, it had been convincing the galaxy they were primitive while building an industrial base that spanned the solar system. Every probe failure, every primitive satellite launch had been carefully orchestrated to maintain the illusion. And our newest advantage? Hawthorne asked, referring to the fresh intel from the Curiosity. Their crystalline technology is theoretically superior to most of our systems, Wong admitted. But it has a fatal flaw. Their computational matrices are vulnerable to specific resonance frequencies. One good hit at the right frequency. He made a shattering gesture with his hands. In another part of the facility, Dr. Sarah Chen's quantum backup, a perfect copy of her consciousness created moments before the Curiosity's capture, was already working with engineers to develop weapons that could exploit this weakness. The aliens had no idea that the primitive humans they'd captured were just shells, their real minds safely transmitted home along with the tactical data. Admiral Hawthorne moved to a larger strategic display showing the entire solar system. Hidden weapons platforms, stealth shipyards, and defense systems appeared as tiny points of light. Time estimate until they make their move. Based on their communications, the Concordat believes they need to contain us before we become a genuine threat. They'll likely strike within months, using overwhelming force against what they think is a primitive civilization. Perfect. Hawthorne's smile was predatory. Deploy the Ghost Fleet. I want our stealth platforms in position throughout the system. And wake up the Lazarus units. The Lazarus units were perhaps humanity's greatest secret, soldiers whose bodies were composed entirely of programmable matter, able to reform even after apparent destruction. The aliens would learn the hard way why humans were called Deathworlders. In orbit around Venus, hidden shipyards began launching vessels that had never appeared on any official registry. Their hulls were made of metamaterials that absorbed or redirected all forms of scanning, their weapons designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in crystalline technology. On Mars, automated factories that had been disguised as failed colonies sprang to life, producing swarms of combat drones with distributed quantum intelligence. Each one was individually weak, but together they formed a devastating weapons system that could think and adapt faster than any crystalline computer. Back in the command center, Admiral Hawthorne received updates from similar facilities around the world. Russia's deep space monitoring stations, hidden in the Siberian wilderness. China's quantum computation arrays, buried in artificial islands in the South China Sea. Europe's antimatter production facilities, concealed beneath the Antarctic ice. Humanity had never been as divided as they appeared. The squabbling nations, the territorial disputes, all carefully maintained theater to convince watching aliens that humans were too primitive and disorganized to be a threat. Message from the Council of Nations, her aide reported. Operation Looking Glass is approved. All military assets are now under unified command. Hawthorne nodded. The plan they'd prepared for generations was finally in motion. While the Concordat prepared their invasion fleet, humanity would be ready with a response that would shake the foundations of their crystalline empire. Send word to the deep space facilities, she ordered. Tell them to begin mass production of the resonance weapons. And contact the phantom cells in the Kuiper belt, it's time to activate the quantum disruption network. As her orders were relayed, Hawthorne thought about the crew of the Curiosity. Their sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. The aliens thought they had captured valuable hostages, never realizing they held only empty shells while the real minds of the crew were already safe at home, their knowledge and experiences preserved through quantum backups. One more thing, she added. Begin Operation Trojan Horse. Let's make sure our captured crew gives our crystalline friends exactly the kind of information we want them to have. The pieces were in place. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment, building technologies and weapons that no one suspected they possessed. Now it was time to show the galaxy why you should never underestimate a species that had evolved on a death world. The real question wasn't whether humanity would survive. The question was whether the crystalline Concordat would survive humanity's response. The breaking point. The crystalline Concordat's invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, 10,000 ships strong, their crystalline hulls refracting sunlight in dazzling patterns. To their sensors, Earth appeared primitive and defenseless. A few crude satellites, some basic orbital stations, and pathetic chemical-propelled vessels that barely deserved to be called spacecraft. High Commander ZYX of the Concordat watched from his flagship's bridge, his crystalline form pulsing with anticipation. The intelligence gathered from the captured human vessel had confirmed everything they believed about this primitive species. Their technology was centuries behind galactic standards, their military capabilities laughable. Begin the cleansing, he ordered. Show these Deathworlders the price of defiance. The first wave of ships moved forward, weapons charging. On Earth's surface, millions watched the approaching fleet. But instead of panic, there was only grim determination. The moment they prepared for had arrived. In her underground command center, Admiral Hawthorne gave a single command: initiate Operation Ghostlight. Throughout the solar system, hidden quantum transmitters activated. The signal they broadcast was precisely calibrated to the resonance frequency of crystalline computing matrices. To the Concordat's ships, it was like a hammer striking glass. Hundreds of vessels suddenly lost control, their navigation systems scrambled. Others found their weapons refusing to fire, or firing at random. The perfectly coordinated assault dissolved into chaos. Impossible. ZYX's form flickered with rage. Their technology is primitive. They can't possibly. His words were cut short as new contacts appeared on their tactical displays. Rising from Earth's oceans, emerging from beneath the lunar surface, detaching from asteroids that had been hollow all along, humanity's Real fleet revealed itself. The human ships were nothing like the crude vessels the Concordat had expected. Their hulls seemed to drink in light, making them hard to track even at close range. Their weapons were an impossible mix of technologies, quantum disruptors, gravity lances, and most terrifying of all, devices that emitted the exact frequencies needed to shatter crystalline technology. "Launch the Lazarus units," Hawthorne commanded. Across the battlefield, specially designed pods accelerated toward the alien fleet. Inside each one was a soldier composed of programmable matter, capable of reforming even after apparent destruction. When the pods impacted Concordat ships, these soldiers literally flowed through hull breaches, their bodies adapting to counter any defense they encountered. The aliens had expected to face primitive weapons, bullets, missiles, and crude energy beams. Instead, they found their ships being torn apart from the inside by enemies that couldn't be killed, while human vessels that seemed to ignore the laws of physics systematically dismantled their fleet. Status of the Quantum Disruption Network? Hawthorne asked, watching the battle unfold. "Online and effective," her tactical officer reported. "Their faster-than-light communications are completely blocked. Each ship is fighting alone, unable to coordinate with the others." The Concordat's advantage in numbers meant nothing when they couldn't communicate or coordinate. Their sophisticated battle computers, the pride of their civilization, were being reduced to useless crystal by carefully targeted resonance weapons. On his flagship, High Commander ZYX watched in horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart by weapons that shouldn't exist. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning, using technology far beyond what should have been possible for their species. "Fall back," he ordered. "Regroup at the secondary coordinates." But there was no escape. The humans had prepared too well, laid their trap too perfectly. As the battle reached its climax, Admiral Hawthorne sent a transmission to the Concordat flagship. Her hologram appeared before ZYX, wearing the same predatory smile that had become humanity's signature expression. "You should have done your homework," she said calmly. "Earth isn't just a death world, it's the crucible that forged a species capable of surviving anything. Including you." The message was punctuated by the arrival of humanity's final surprise, massive structures previously hidden in the Kuiper Belt, now revealing themselves as weapon platforms that dwarfed even the largest Concordat vessels. "Your mistake," Hawthorne continued, "wasn't underestimating our technology. Your mistake was assuming that what you saw was all we had. That our divisions were real, our primitive appearance genuine. The weapon platforms opened fire, their attacks synchronized through quantum entanglement that the Concordat couldn't detect or disrupt. Each shot found its target with perfect precision, shattering crystalline hulls and computer cores. In less than an hour, the greatest invasion fleet the Concordat had ever assembled was reduced to glittering debris drifting through space. High Commander ZYX, watching his forces being systematically destroyed, finally understood the true nature of the species he'd dismissed as primitive. Humans hadn't evolved to be the strongest, fastest, or most technologically advanced. They'd evolved to be survivors, to adapt, to hide their strengths until the perfect moment to strike. And now the galaxy would learn why Earth was called a death world, not because of its hostile environment, but because of what that environment had created. The breaking point hadn't been reached by humanity. It had been reached by those foolish enough to believe that humans would be easy prey. Turning the tables. In the aftermath of the battle, humanity didn't pause to celebrate their victory. Admiral Hawthorne stood in a quantum-secured war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the movement of Earth's fleet through conquered Concordat space. The true scale of human technological advancement was finally revealed, not in triumph, but in methodical execution. "Status of the captured crystalline databases," she asked, watching as specialized teams swarmed through the wreckage of the invasion fleet. Dr. Wong's fingers danced across his console. "Better than expected. Their arrogance was their weakness, they never thought to encrypt their most basic systems. We now have access to their entire stellar cartography network, colonial locations, and military deployment patterns. The stolen data painted a clear picture. The crystalline concordat was vast but surprisingly vulnerable. They'd grown complacent in their perceived technological superiority, never imagining that a primitive species could threaten them. Humanity's counterattack moved with precision that shocked the galactic community. Ghost fleets appeared simultaneously at 12 major concordat worlds, their quantum-shifted drives allowing them to bypass all known defense systems. The ships seemed to phase through traditional barriers, their metamaterial hulls adapting to any countermeasure. On each world, the same message was broadcast: your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are useless. Surrender or face the consequences of your attempted genocide. The Lazarus units proved particularly effective in urban combat. Crystalline warriors found themselves facing enemies that could flow like liquid through their defenses, reform after any attack, and adapt their combat strategies in real time. The psychological impact was devastating. How do you fight an enemy that treats death as a minor inconvenience? From her command center on Titan, Sarah Chen's quantum backup coordinated the deployment of specialized resonance weapons. Each concordat city had unique crystalline frequencies, and humans now knew them all. Entire defensive networks could be shattered with precisely calibrated sonic pulses. Message from the Concordat High Council, an aide reported. They're requesting terms for surrender. Hawthorne's expression remained neutral. Send them our conditions. Full technological exchange, reparations for the Curiosity's crew, and recognition of Earth's sovereign space, including our hidden territories. The response was immediate. The Concordat, facing an enemy that had systematically dismantled their military might, had no choice but to agree. But humanity's revenge wasn't complete. As Concordat diplomats prepared for surrender negotiations, human intelligence operatives were already moving through their society, planting quantum monitoring devices disguised as ordinary crystalline growths. Never again would Earth be caught unprepared. The captured crew of the Curiosity were released, only to reveal another layer of human deception. Their bodies had been implanted with specialized quantum recorders, gathering intelligence throughout their captivity. Every interrogation, every casual conversation, every glimpse of alien technology had been transmitted back to Earth through subspace channels the Concordat hadn't known existed. Interesting development from the outer colonies, Dr. Wong reported. Several Concordat worlds are requesting human protection. Apparently, our reputation for surviving against impossible odds has made us attractive allies. Admiral Hawthorne allowed herself a small smile. This was the final phase of humanity's emergence, not just defeating their enemies, but reshaping the galactic political landscape. Earth's apparent weakness had been a carefully crafted illusion, hiding the truth: humans weren't just survivors, they were masters of adaptation and deception. In the following weeks, as news of the Concordat's defeat spread through the galaxy, other alien civilizations scrambled to reassess their understanding of humanity. The primitive Deathworlders had revealed themselves to be technological sophisticates who had hidden their true capabilities for centuries. Trade delegations arrived from distant empires, seeking to establish relations with Earth before humanity turned its attention their way. Each was politely received, carefully monitored, and subtly reminded of what had happened to the last civilization that underestimated humans. In her private moments, Admiral Hawthorne reflected on the strategy that had brought them here. Humanity had never needed to be the strongest or most advanced species. They just needed to be patient, careful, and willing to let their enemies believe they were weak, until the perfect moment to strike. The crystalline Concordat had learned this lesson too late. Their mighty empire, built on assumptions of technological superiority, had been undone by a species they dismissed as primitive. Now they served as an object lesson to the galaxy: never underestimate humans, for beneath their simple exterior lies a species that had turned survival into an art form. The tables hadn't just turned, they had been flipped with calculated precision by a civilization that had spent generations preparing for this moment. Humanity was no longer pretending to be primitive. They were ready to take their place among the stars, not as newcomers to be patronized, but as a power to be respected and feared. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, other civilizations looked at Earth with new eyes, wondering what other secrets the Deathworlders might be hiding. A new understanding. A year after the Concordat's defeat, the Galactic Assembly gathered in its crystal-spired hall on neutral territory. But this time, something was different. Among the exotic alien forms and environmental bubbles, a simple human delegation sat in a position of prominence. No protective suits, no special accommodations, just humans in business attire, radiating quiet confidence. Ambassador Elena Santos, formerly a quantum physicist before being selected to represent Earth, stood at the podium. Her simple black suit contrasted sharply with the ornate biomechanical robes and crystalline formations worn by other species representatives. The galaxy, she began, has operated under a misconception. You believed technological advancement meant superiority. That visible power meant actual strength. She smiled, and several delegates shifted uncomfortably, reminded of similar expressions worn by human soldiers during the war. Humanity evolved on what you call a death world. But you never understood what that meant. It wasn't just about surviving harsh conditions, it was about learning to adapt, to hide, to wait for the right moment. Every human child learns to play hide and seek. Every human culture has stories about the small and clever defeating the big and strong. The assembly chamber was silent. Even the usual background hum of environmental systems seemed muted. The Concordat's defeat wasn't just a military victory, Elena continued. It was a lesson. One that we hope never needs repeating. In the year since the war, the galaxy had changed dramatically. The quantum technologies humanity had revealed were just the beginning. Earth now openly displayed capabilities that reshaped understanding of what was possible. Ships that could phase through solid matter, soldiers who treated death as temporary, weapons that could target specific molecular frequencies. But more shocking than the technology was the revelation of humanity's true nature. They weren't just warriors or scientists, they were master strategists who had spent generations crafting the perfect deception. The Void Collective, an ancient species of energy beings, approached Earth for an alliance. They had seen through aspects of humanity's deception years ago but had chosen to watch and wait. Now they sought to learn from the masters of adaptive survival. We offer a new paradigm, Elena announced. Earth will share its advances in quantum engineering, phase shift propulsion, and adaptive materials. In return, we ask only for honest cooperation and recognition of our sovereign space, including the territories we've kept hidden. That last revelation had stunned the galaxy. Humanity's true territory extended far beyond Earth, with concealed colonies and installations scattered throughout supposedly empty systems. They had built an empire in plain sight, all while playing the role of primitive newcomers. The crystalline Concordat's representatives, now reduced to observer status, watched with bitter understanding. Their mighty civilization had been humbled not by superior force, but by their own arrogance in dismissing humanity as primitive. This is the beginning of a new era, Elena concluded. One where advancement is measured not by what you show, but by what you can achieve. Where survival means more than just having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. In the decades that followed, humanity's influence spread through the galaxy not through conquest, but through a combination of diplomatic finesse and subtle reminders of their capabilities. Earth became known as a place where the impossible became possible, where technological barriers were broken not through brute force but through clever innovation. The term Deathworlder took on new meaning. It no longer meant simply coming from a harsh planet, it meant being part of a civilization that had turned deception and adaptation into an art form. Other species began to study human history, finding countless examples of their true nature hidden in plain sight. Their apparent primitive technology had been a masterful deception. Their internal conflicts had been elaborate theater. Even their entertainment, movies, books, games, had contained hints of their true capabilities, hidden behind the assumption that they were merely fiction. Admiral Hawthorne, watching the assembly session from Earth via quantum link, allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had emerged not just as a military power, but as something far more interesting, a species that had proven intelligence and adaptability were the greatest weapons of all. The galaxy was learning what the Concordat had discovered too late, that sometimes the most dangerous species isn't the one that shows its strength, but the one patient enough to hide it until the perfect moment. And as new alien civilizations made contact with Earth, they all asked the same question: what else were the humans hiding? The answer, of course, was classified.